Hi everyone, Kartik Krishnaiyer for Beyond the 90. And in this series that we are about to begin on the Soccerwarz, which are now in full focus with the recent situation in Indianapolis, as well as the U.S. Open Cup situation, and everything we've written about at Beyond the 90 regarding MLS Next Pro, USL, MLS, these proxy wars that are going on, etc. It's a good time to look back at the origins of this soccer wars because this is really a 15-year conflict that began in earnest in the fall of 2009 when a group of teams in USL, in the USL First Division, what was then called the USL First Division, which was the second division of American soccer at the time, chose to break off. Members of the Team Owners Association, as it was called. And those clubs included Montreal, Vancouver, and Vancouver, who are now in MLS. And there were, of course, other clubs involved. The leaders of that Team Owners Association were Miami and North Carolina. I want to mention that Miami team actually became Fort Lauderdale Strikers. That Miami FC is not the same Miami FC that exists today. So let's talk a little bit about that. So USL had managed the second and third divisions of American soccer, as well as one of the major adult amateur leagues, which was the PDL. Now, there were clubs that broke off the PDL and formed the NPSL, and we're going to talk about that in a future video. But for our purposes, there was a Team Owners Association that was led by, as I said, really by Miami, Montreal Impact, and Carolina Railhawks. They were not happy with the sale of USL to New Rock, which is Alec Papadakis and Rob Hoskins. They broke off and tried to form their own league in the fall of 2009. U.S. Soccer comes back in December of 2009 and says, we're not sanctioning USL First Division for 2010, nor are we sanctioning the new Team Owners Association League, which had decided to take the name North American Soccer League. Full disclosure, the next month that league hired me, but I remain very objective about these events. So I'm not taking this from a biased perspective. U.S. Soccer, though, did say we're going to operate our own second division in 2010. That's the logo you see on the screen, the U.S. Soccer Federation D2 Pro League, as it was called. We're going to operate the league. All the clubs that meet the D2 standards that want to participate in Division 2 from USL and NASL can participate in this league. In fact, there was a USL division and an NASL division, although it didn't equate directly to necessarily, because the affiliations changed during 2010. Some teams that had lined up with USL switched to NASL, and there was a team that was affiliated with NASL, which was the Rochester Rhinos, who chose to go to USL in 2011. One team, the Charleston Battery, maybe the best second division team in the land right now. One team decided, you know what, we don't want to be part of this. We're just going to drop down to D3 for the time being, which they did for several years. Charleston did. So USSF operates this league for a year, the USSF D2 Pro League, hoping that there'll be some resolution. But in fact, there wasn't a resolution. In fact, what came out of the USSF D2 Pro League were a new set of Pro League standards for the Division 2 level, which NASL was able to meet, albeit barely, and in fact did not get full sanctioning for 2011, just provisional sanctioning. And USL was not able to meet at all, and USL had to drop down to the Division 3 level. The one and only final of the USSF Division 2 Pro League was between the Puerto Rico Islanders and the Carolina Railhawks. I attended both legs of the final in my duties by this time working for NASL. As you can see in this photo of myself down in Bayamon, Puerto Rico, I am wearing an NASL shirt. And that was one of the great clubs at the time, Puerto Rico Islanders. So younger people may not realize how significant they were. In fact, not only did they win this D2 championship that year, they had beaten the LA Galaxy over 2 legs in the CONCACAF Champions League just a few months earlier, 5-3 on aggregate. Over 2 legs, a Galaxy team, which David Beckham was on, but he didn't play in either leg. But Landon Donovan and Edson Buttle played in both legs. Started one of the legs, came off the bench in the other, among other prominent Galaxy players. So really high-level team. Remember, at the time, MLS only had 16 teams or whatever, so you had a lot of really good players at the D2 level playing in the USSF Division II Pro League. You had guys including the likes of Stevie Ralston, who played for St. Louis that year. So that was the one and only year of the USSF D2 Pro League. Both these finalists, Puerto Rico and Carolina, which is now called North Carolina FC, by the way, in USL, in the USL Championship, were in the NASL. So 2011 NASL starts play, only gets provisionally sanctioned. I don't want to go through the whole rigmarole as to why the NASL was fully sanctioned in November and then lost that full sanctioning and was only provisionally sanctioned in February. The result was NASL could not play in the US Open Cup in 2011, and USL's new league called the USL Pro League did. So what happens is NASL's a D2, USL's a D3, but there was intense fighting between the two leagues. And there, Rochester, as I mentioned, had switched alliances in the middle of 2010, as had Puerto Rico. They'd started out with USL, they switched to NASL. Tampa Bay flipped back and forth a couple of times, ended up in NASL, and Tampa Bay ended up playing 6 seasons in NASL before moving to USL Championship, where they are now. But there was intense competition over expansion franchises or expansion clubs. They're not franchises in NASL. There were clubs in NASL, independent clubs that had ownership stakes in the league. In USL, they are franchises. For a couple of initial expansion battles, San Antonio and Ottawa were won by NASL. Ottawa is, in fact, an existing USL team in the PDL and USLW league that chose to go to NASL. But then the big victory for USL the following year was getting Sacramento in 2012, which was highly sought out by NASL. It was a market I took a particular interest in as a NASL employee and worked on trying to get an expansion team there. USL beat us to that, and I think that that's become very much one of the anchor franchises of USL Pro, whose logo you see on the screen, which was a D3 league, and then, of course, now the USL Championship. The other big event was in 2012. The New York Cosmos came out of their dormant status and rejoined the NASL. And the Cosmos joining the NASL gave the NASL executives the deluded belief that they could compete with MLS. But it also is good to have competition. So while it was maybe a death wish that they could compete with MLS, it also was something I think was needed in the system. And that started a new phase of the Soccerwarz, where the battle was at least temporarily between NASL and MLS, with USL Pro serving as an ally of MLS. MLS and USL reached an agreement in 2013 to house reserve teams in USL Pro, which was at the time a third division, let's remember. NASL was the second division. MLS obviously has been the first division this whole time. And that alliance stabilized USL. USL had I didn't mention this earlier. USL in 2011 had 3 teams that folded during the season. And they had 2 teams that folded during the season. And then they had a team in Antigua, which was way away from anything else. Their closest opponent after the 2 teams that were folded was in Orlando. And then they had a team in Los Angeles, which is now Orange County SC, which was far away from any other team. So USL was not stable at the time, but the deal with MLS helped stabilize them.